How's it going, nerds? Welcome to learning a little bit more about StreamerBot, and specific today I'm going to be showing you the importance of why you should be using queues. The queue system is probably the most overlooked feature when you're first starting out because it already does everything you need it to. It sets things in a default queue of some sort, so you don't think about it. But there is a reason why you need to really pay attention to how this works and how this can benefit you, because if you don't do it early, it gets a little frustrating later on. So first off, the queue system is a method in which you can basically control the flow of each different system that you have implemented within StreamerBot. Now, when I say system, I mean something like, well, I have all these for channel points, I have all these for alerts, I have all these for my scene changes. You have different things that you can categorize, but sometimes you don't place them correctly, and then you wind up getting things either overlapping constantly, or they're being backed up over and over again, and you can't progress anything. This is why it's important to think about your queue system and how you wish to work it. So let's go ahead and kind of dive into what you need to look at here. So when you have your StreamerBot open, what you're going to do is go over to this action queues, and the first thing it's going to bring up is pending actions. Now, naturally, nothing is running right now, so there's nothing in pending. Over here is the queues. This is where you can sit and put everything together when it comes to basically creating a system that is effective for you. Now, I mean, as you can see right here, I've already got a few different things labeled here and different queues that I use. This is so that way I can ensure everything is being managed the way it's supposed to. Now, the way to think about this is thinking about each queue as one lane of traffic, but it's only a single lane and nobody can change lanes. So if you have one queue for alerts, only the alerts, then everything is going to follow in sequence for that. Or for instance, if you look over here, I have one specific for my raids and first words. So that way that raids and first words will be queued in a sequence. But what if you don't need anything queued in a sequence? What if you need something to happen immediately and not wait? Well, that's where you're going to want to pay attention to this over here, blocking. So if you have this set where it's blocking, that means one action is going to go and nothing else will trigger until that one is done. If you do no blocking and you just decide to let anything run, then 3 actions can run simultaneously without interfering with each other when it comes to being triggered. Now, one of the things that can be problematic if you choose to not block is that so many things can fire at one time that it can overload your PC, it can overload your StreamerBot or even your OBS and crash your stream midway through, or even crash your PC. It's entirely possible. This is the reason why it's good to understand how you need to separate things to make it easier not only for you to manage everything, but also to keep everything running efficiently during a live stream. So when you add a new queue, it'll come up and it'll say name. Now you will name it whatever you want. If you enable blocking, that means you are going to make sure one action finishes before the next. If you do not have that checked, everything can fire immediately and get stacked on top of each other. So when I set things up, when I don't want things to be blocked, I want them to just happen immediately, I have different labels that I use for them. The first one is hotkeys, and hotkeys is essentially just saying, I need this to fire immediately. It's a quick action. It is not anything that is going to be too intensive. You know, it's just a quick trigger. And usually I do something like putting a message in my chat, like, here's the rules of my chat. I also have one that's called no block, and no block just means that there is no blocking to this one. So if there are ones that I feel, yes, can just go ahead and fire without having to worry about it, then yay, go ahead. And sometimes I use non-blocking methods for something like when it comes to my long-term goal widget that I created, where the start is not blocked, the stop is not blocked, but the actual goal itself is blocked. So looking at my long-term goal widget, you'll notice that I have here the adjust and end goal. That's going to be a hotkey. I've done the main code of this, which is everything that needs to run and do setups. That's just a hotkey. But when it comes to the actual action that's going to hold all the triggers and actually adjust the goal bar, this is under the long-term goal widget that is in a blocking action. I can manage one entire set of actions all coordinated together with something with various different ways of applying it, because certain things I need to make sure fire no matter what. And those things that fire no matter what, I don't want blocked, which would be if I want the rotation to start immediately, it starts. Don't have to wait on anything else. And it's a simple action. It just says start. It's the same way when it comes to stop. But when it comes to the actual everything has to cycle and refresh and do things repeatedly, I make sure that's blocked. So that way, when a new notification comes up or a new event happens, then it's not going to get interfered with while it's doing what it needs to do to process. And if I have a hype train going on and people are just throwing bits and whatnot at me, it doesn't overload everything and crash. It puts everything staggered. Complete it before you move on to the next one to complete. Making sure the math does what it needs to do, making sure the alert updates the way it needs to, and doesn't get all bunched up and confused. And similarly to how I did Patriot King TTV's alerts that he had me build for him, I was able to basically say that all of these are alerts. Every single one of these needs to make sure that the action completes before another one should fire off. This makes it easy to know that the video files, when they're playing, will stop and turn off like they need to basically refresh to do a full animation again. And this is just so that way that everything still looks clean. It still looks presentable. This is how Stream Elements and Streamlabs essentially work when it comes to your alerts. The biggest benefit when it comes to these queue systems in StreamerBot is the fact that you can have multiple different queue systems and some things will not be stopped by others. So what I mean by this is anything that I put in the alert queue system, so any of my alerts when it comes to followers, subscribers, bits, whatever, however you need your alerts to work, those all will make sure that they fire in sequence as they need to. But then when it comes to anything that is channel points, any of these redeems that I create and have appear, those are not stopped by the alerts. Those can still function on their own, but those are also blocked. So if I have a bunch of people firing off channel points back to back, each one will complete before the next one goes. Now I have multiple things going off, but it's not overwhelming and it is not going to completely blow everything up. So creating different queue systems and making sure that you have categories of how these things need to be placed and how to organize them definitely can help you to manage how your stream's going to be, make it not so overwhelming, as well as, potentially not crashing everything, because that can happen, especially when you get into more complicated stuff with StreamerBot. So to give you a good idea of how I have mine set up is if you look, I have a queue system for a lot of different things. Now, some of them are copies because I do tests and then I forget to remove them. But then there's also ones that are imports that I have from other creators that their tools I just love to use because I think they are fantastically made. But then I have my others that are in here, ones that I create to make sure that each one handles different things at different times and ensures that I'm not going to have stuff overcomplicating everything in my streams. Because let's face it, in my StreamerBot, I have a lot. Because I build a lot, I use a lot, and I like to make a lot available to my viewers. But the queue system's not really that difficult to work with. It's a matter of organizing how you want them to be. So if we take, for instance, how I have my Stream Deck set up, I actually use StreamerBot for pretty much every single one of these buttons. So here on going to my chat scene, this is all controlled with StreamerBot, and it has the action of switch to chat. And that action is actually a hotkey. I have placed it under hotkey. So essentially, when it comes down to it, what I have is that I have this screen that I normally have for when I'm talking and just chatting, and I have these screens behind me and everything. Then when I do the work to chat, when I press the button on my Stream Deck, it's a hotkey that makes sure that it happens immediately, and I don't have to worry about anything interfering with it. So that way I can get to where I'm showing stuff on the screen, I can still talk the way I want, and then the same thing goes when I want to go to what I call my gaming screen, where I shrink down, the screen becomes completely full, like this, where I do these nice little motion transfers between each one of them, but I'm also making sure that as I'm doing this, none of these actions are going to be held up by my alerts or by my bits. and it's not going to be held up by anything else. That's the reason why I have them set as not blocking, is that when I hit it, it triggers. Now, an example of one that I do have in a blocked queue is my shout out button. Right now, I currently have it to where if I was to flip through down here, as I turn that knob, I'm able to make sure that I'm choosing the person I want. Then when I press the shout out button, it's going to be in the queue for that specific thing. This way, I make sure that if there's a shout out already occurring and it's showing a clip or something like that, I'm not going to have another one pop up in the middle of that one, having them overlap. So that is a way that I actually have a Stream Deck button in place that uses a blocking queue. How you put your queue system together is completely up to you. I do recommend, though, setting these up and having some sort of organization early on, because then as you add to your StreamerBot and put more into it, the easier it's going to be for you to know where that needs to go within which queue. That's all I've got for you today on this video. I hope those of you who are new to StreamerBot or have never used queues before at least have a better idea of how you can use those queue systems to benefit you and your streams and really everything that you do with StreamerBot. If you have any questions, you can always ask in the comments, and I always try to respond to every single one. Or you can join my Discord server, and you can ask me questions there. Or if you see me live on Twitch or here on YouTube, you can also interrupt a live stream and ask me there, because I love answering questions. All right, you guys have fun streaming, and I will be back again with another handy video for you.